All right, so today we're diving into a topic that's a little bit, well, sensitive.
Yeah, okay.
Infidelity. But more specifically, we're going to be looking at the idea of like lack of commitment or loyalty and how that might play into things.
Okay.
And before we really get going, I do just want to say, we're not here to judge anyone or their choices.
Right.
Infidelity is complicated. And what we're aiming for here is understanding.
Gotcha.
So to help us unpack all of this, we have an expert on relationships and social dynamics. Welcome to the deep dive. This is a topic that I feel like brings up a lot of questions.
Absolutely. And, it's important to approach it with sensitivity and with nuance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So our source material kind of puts forth this idea that being exposed to lots of potential partners, think like dating apps or just a very social lifestyle, might actually make us less committed. Does that ring true to you at all?
It is, I think, certainly something to consider. Infidelity is rarely about just one thing. It's a web of different factors. But this idea that our environment can really influence our choices, it's called choice architecture.
Oh, interesting.
And it's a pretty fascinating concept.
Okay, so choice architecture. So that's like how the options that are presented to us shape our decisions. So like in this context, dating apps, do you think they contribute to this whole like grass is always greener feeling?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. On an app, you're swiping, you're seeing all these curated profiles, you're getting these notifications, and it really does create this sense of like endless possibility.
Yeah.
And it can make it harder to appreciate and really invest in one person. It's almost like we're shopping for a partner instead of trying to build a connection.
Yeah, it's like going to a buffet versus cooking a meal at home. One is all about that instant gratification.
Right.
And the other takes time and effort.
Yeah.
Have you seen this kind of dynamic play out in your work with couples?
Many times. And it's not always the main factor, of course, but sometimes that ease of meeting someone new, it can undermine the work that's needed to actually sustain a committed relationship.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if it's even possible to cultivate like real commitment in this age of endless options. Like, do you think it's possible?
I believe it is, but it requires conscious effort. I think open communication about your needs, your expectations, that's key. And I think actively choosing to prioritize the relationship even when those temptations arise.
Right, yeah, like setting those boundaries, maybe limiting social media or app use if it becomes, too much of a trigger. So we've talked a lot about this lack of commitment as like one potential piece of the infidelity puzzle. But I know there are a lot of other reasons why infidelity might happen.
Definitely. Unmet needs in a relationship are a big one. When someone feels emotionally neglected or their desires aren't being fulfilled, they might seek those things elsewhere.
But wouldn't that sense of commitment kind of encourage you to address those needs within the relationship rather than looking outside of it?
Ideally, yes. But sometimes communication breaks down. Resentment can build. People can start to feel stuck. They may not even realize that they're seeking something else until it happens.
Right.
Another common factor is insecurity. The need for validation, or just that desire to feel attractive and desired.
So it's not always malicious. Sometimes it's more about like trying to fill a void, even if it's done in a way that can be really hurtful.
Exactly. And that's why I think understanding all the different nuances of infidelity is so important. There's rarely a simple explanation.
Right. It's not about excusing the behavior, but more about understanding that it's complicated. So I guess if we loop back to our main focus, this idea of lacking commitment, what can someone do if they realize this might be an issue for them?
Well, I think first and foremost, honesty. Talk to your partner about your expectations, about your needs. Explore whether the relationship structure really works for both of you. And consider how your environment, your social circles, your online activity, how that might be influencing your choices.
Yeah, it's almost like taking inventory of the relationship.
Yes.
Your desires and the forces that might be pushing you in one direction or the other.
Precisely. And remember, building commitment takes constant work, especially in a world that often prioritizes that instant gratification.
Right. Well, this has been a really insightful look at a topic that can be, pretty tough to talk about.
Yeah.
We've explored how that lack of commitment, while not the only factor, can play a role in infidelity.
Right.
We've also touched on the importance of communication, self-awareness, and taking responsibility for our choices.
And I would add, don't underestimate the power of consciously choosing to nurture that relationship. It is an ongoing process. But it really is the foundation of lasting commitment.
That's a great point. So as you go about your day, think about this. In a world of endless swipes and instant connections. How do you define and cultivate genuine commitment in your own life?
That's a good question.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.